Circle of Honor is brought to you by Dickies, a legend in work.
Hi, it's Tom Wolfat, welcoming you to another episode of Circle of Honor. What if you could take something that you've mastered for purely practical purposes, and with a little bit of drive and a lot of imagination, create the foundation for a brand new industry? Well, that's what today's honoree, Robert Chandler, did about 25 years ago. At that time, he was replacing parts on his Ford F-250 so that he could have a bigger and better truck for work. What he ended up with was the truck that became known as the original Bigfoot monster truck. What started out as a vehicle that got a lot of attention because of its size has gradually evolved into a larger and larger entertainment spectacle with daring stunts, burning rubber, and twisted metal, generating ticket sales all over the world in the millions of dollars. Let's find out exactly how that happened and how this extraordinary sequence of events has changed life for Bob and his family.
I was born in St. Louis. Went to a Catholic school here till I was 12 years old, and my family moved to California. We're in San Rafael, San Jose area. Went to high school out there. As a kid, I liked trucks. I liked tractors. More than anything else, I liked taking things apart, trying to put them back together. Like my mom and dad always laugh about that because I'd take everything I had, I'd take apart, and most of the time, some of the time I got it back together. But I've always been kind of mechanically inclined, and I just like doing that type of thing. I take things apart to see what they're made of. When in high school, I had a Chevrolet pickup, but I did the same thing. I'd take it apart, and I actually learned how to change the brakes on it and tune the engine, etc. It's another input into the truck. I always liked trucks, so I had a truck. And back then in high school, you weren't really in if you had a pickup truck. Cars. Everybody had cars. I had a pickup truck, and I learned how to change the brakes and tune up the engine, etc. But I was never satisfied with it either. I always wanted to put bigger tires on it and make it bigger.
I first met Bob Chandler. I was about 15 years old. His father is in the construction business, Chandler Construction. He worked for him and building a couple houses across the street from where I lived. And while the houses were being built, of course, I was very inquisitive, watching them go up. And one very funny thing was happening. There's a guy on a motorcycle carrying 2x4s on his shoulder, riding up this plank onto the deck and dropping wood. So I thought, that's pretty neat. I could ride a motorcycle pretty good. So I went over and introduced myself, and he was Bob. He had a motorcycle back then, old 305 Honda Scrambler, big hot bike at the time. Right then I figured, I got to get a motorcycle. That looked like a lot of fun. So the houses got built. One got sold to a private party, and Bob ended up buying the other one and living there with a bunch of guys for a while. We both rode motorcycles for a number of years and ended up hurting ourselves. I broke an arm when I was 21 years old, and that's the mobility I have. He had several bad wrecks with his ankle and his leg, and a little altercation with a piece of barbed wire. So we decided to sell our motorcycles and get four-wheel drive trucks.
Well, I was in construction for about 22 years. And actually what got me into four-wheel drive, I've always had a four-wheel drive. I always played around with four-wheel drive trucks, even in construction. And I had a Ford pickup truck, and actually my wife and I drove this thing all the way to Alaska and back with a camper on the back of it. My eldest daughter was with us at the time. She was still a baby. And that summer, we drove 13,000 miles, and we were on the road for almost 3 months. When I got to Alaska with the truck, I had some problem with tires because there's 1,300 miles of gravel driving up to Alaska at the time. And I found some bigger tires in Anchorage, Alaska. They were 1,216 5s, and to me that was the biggest tire I've seen, for a truck. I put those on and had no problem the rest of the trip, all the way back down to California. We went down to Mexico and then back to St. Louis at the time. And then I liked the way it looked with those bigger tires, and the next step was trying to see if I could put a bigger set than that on. And to do that, I had to go to a bigger axle. That's when I ended up going to a 2.5-ton military axle, a stronger axle for that application. And then I got the order to put a bigger tire on the truck.
And we started fixing up our trucks, and we thought, well, if everybody else has to do this, there might be a market for a shop here in St. Louis. And sure enough, we started Midwest Four-Wheel Drive together. And that's how it all started. Actually, just getting four-wheel drive parts so the public had some place in St. Louis area, in the Midwest, completely in the Midwest, to come and buy parts.
When we return, we'll find out how Bob's truck, built primarily as an advertisement for his four-wheel drive parts company, got booked into its first car show. He came to the realization that his truck could not only help their business in the way of advertising, but that it could also actually generate additional income by hiring it out to car shows.
Well, when we started the shop, it was called Midwest Four-Wheel Drive Center. That was my four-wheel drive shop at the time. That's where Bigfoot actually got its start. And it was an advertising tool for my shop. I'd put a product that I sold on the truck, and I've always put bigger tires than anybody else had, so people would look at it and see the name of the shop. We opened the doors, and from that point on, I never went back to construction because it's a full-time job. It was just the right time and the right place.
Originally, when they got the truck, it was really a play vehicle and a work vehicle. We used to go every weekend to the Black River and played. I mean, we would climb in the back of the truck. There'd be 3 or 4 of us, and stand up holding the row barn or flying through the water, going through ditches, in the woods, etc.
Everything we put on it had to be, it was an experiment. And we always built things stronger than they had to be in the first place, And quite often you build it stronger and then you work your way back to where it's lighter and more efficient.
Us kids would go everywhere. Every weekend we would go somewhere, it seemed like, whether we were going down to Lesterville to play or whether we were going to a tractor pull, which was slowly but surely evolving into truck pulling also. Then as it moved along, we got to, I guess once the bigger tires got on it, where it was really something different than what everybody was thinking, not just a full drive vehicle with a little bit bigger tires on it.
Bigfoot was it's the end result of a lot of the different things that we felt we needed at the time. And over a period of 7 years, it turned out to be a Bigfoot truck per se. And we would work on our trucks and compete with them. And the more we worked on them, the taller they got and the harder they were to work in the engine compartment. So consequently, we decided to make it easier on us. We tilt the hood so we could walk in and work on the engine. And that's how Bigfoot 1 got its tilt hood. And we would go compete with our friends with the Jeep clubs. That's were very prevalent around St. Louis at the time. We had a big, long F-250 truck, and of course they had their Jeep CJ7s. They could negotiate trees and sharp trails a lot easier than we could. So we got back home and said, man, we got to be able to keep up with these guys. What are we going to do? So we said, well, let's put a rear axle in it that also steers, and we can actually full-wheel steer around these trees, and hopefully we can keep up with the CJ7 crowd. And that's why the rear end steering got into Bigfoot. All the while, still larger axles, larger tires. That was just a natural progression because we found the more interesting we could make the truck, the more the people came in, the more the people got ideas about their own truck and went to fix their trucks up, and it was good for business.
As we experimented with the truck, I'd take it out on weekends and race it, any kind of race. We'd do hill climbs, mud runs, truck pulls, anything we could get the truck in, we'd try it. And I'd come back Monday morning with it broke, and my general manager started calling me Bigfoot.
He just couldn't keep his damn big foot off the gas. And that's what we'd say, damn it, if you keep your foot off the gas, you wouldn't break every part of your truck, and you maybe could make it home. We wouldn't have to go tow it home. And that's the long and short of it. We call him Bigfoot because he could invariably, if we went out to any kind of event, he wouldn't quit till it wouldn't run. All because he just was a little bit too heavy on the gas.
Well, when I built the first truck, Bigfoot 1, which is the one you see behind me here, that truck now is almost 30 years old. When I'd take it out and go to an event, people would look at it because it was different. It was always bigger. I always raised it up higher, put bigger tires on it. And as it progressed and got bigger and bigger, we had 48-inch tires on it, which is unheard of in the pickup truck. It got a lot of attention. It was great. And what actually happened in 79, 80, some promoter contacted me and says, I want you to come to the show, and I'll pay you to come to the show. And we couldn't believe that. We'd get paid for a change, instead of spending our own money to go to the show.
You wouldn't immediately draw an association between computer technology and truck racing. But with computer-aided design, Bob Chandler and his team were able to create new and improved monster trucks. We'll learn more about that in just a few minutes. Crucial element in helping the Chandlers take their trucks to another level. We'll learn more about that now, the experiences that they've had, and how the industry in general has achieved worldwide success.
The JCs that hire us, the small promoters that hire us. And it just kind of progressed from that point. We did the first movie, Take This Job and Shove It, which really, that came out in 1980, and that was really good for
22. Bob was in, actually got to drive over a Porsche. A couple of police academies, a police academy 3 and a police academy 6. Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze, Sam Elliott, and also Tango and Cash with Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell. We had enough of these calls come in, and Bob tried to service all those calls with one truck, but found out he couldn't. He needed to build a second truck. And I remember he told me, say, look, we'll build a second truck, with a flash in the fan, 2 years, it'll be over with.
My dad pretty much said, come on, Jim, this is only going to be a year or two. Come work for me. Let's get this, you know, I need somebody to help drive. I can't do all this on my own. I want you to come join with us and do this and help us do this for a year or two. Jim said, yeah, sure, fine. I'll take my work out a year or two. I'll go back to I think it was a union job he had. He'll go back to his union job and, you know, no problem. He's been here ever since.
Marilyn took care of our books in the store. Jim Kramer and I did all the work on the trucks and changed tires and everything on vehicles we worked on, and worked on our own trucks at the same time. And it just got to the point where it was, I'd sit down with my wife and you know, we'd say, well, we've got to go to as many of these shows as we can because this can't last, you know. So we just go out and run continuously with the truck. And each year it just seemed to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So one of my favorite cliches or favorite deals is I was at a truck pull here in St. Louis at the old Checker Dome, and Art Orphans was there. He's kind of my idol. He drives a jet tractor, set some land speed records years ago. You know, he's a neat guy. And I was talking to him about the same thing I just said. You know, I don't know how long this is going to last, so I'm going to continue going to as many shows as I can. And Art kind of sits back and says, yeah, I told myself that 30 years ago, too, he says. So,
well, he's viewed as a very personable guy, for one thing, because all through this time frame, he's helped anybody that ever asked him for help in the monster truck industry. Okay, Bob, what did you do? And he'd be very free with his answers. Well, this is what I did, and this didn't work, and this is what I'm doing now, and it seems to work pretty good. And he saved the guys a lot of heartache in building their trucks, a lot of time and experimentation that he went through. He's also viewed as an innovator. And even today, you know, we built stage 1 and 2 monster trucks, went on to stage 3 2 chassis stuff, and he designed the 2 chassis on the CAD. Made a major leap in what monster trucks are today.
I saw a TV show of a vehicle driving over some cars. The cars were wrecked in a junkyard, just totally flattened out. So he didn't go up and up, you know, but maybe a foot off the ground and drive over these cars. I kept thinking, well, my truck could go over full-size cars.
He called me up one day, so I wanted to drive over some cars. So I called a friend of mine locally, and they went down this field and had a couple cars hauled in. He comes cooling down with the truck and looked at the cars and kind of spaced them a little bit, and sure enough, he drove over them.
It just amazed me, the reaction that we got. And from that point on, we couldn't go anywhere without driving over a set of cars. And I'd just go back in, crawl up, and park on top, and we waved to the crowd. Didn't even have seatbelts on our helmet because there was nothing dangerous about it at all. And that slowly progressed. Every year, from that point on, we were car crushing. It got to be where we had so many dates that we couldn't handle it. We built Bigfoot 2, and Jim Kramer would take out the 2, and I'd take out Bigfoot 1, and we'd do more of these shows. Jim Kramer is probably more of a daredevil. He was younger than I was, so he probably tried more things. And he started going after cars sideways and doing some air with them, you know, getting the front tires in the air and coming down on them. And that point when we both had to do the same thing. Then we had to both decide. And he probably let it from that point on. He'd go out and do more of his stunts with the truck. He jumped 6 cars with one of the early trucks years ago. And that was probably one of our first stunts that happened.
Team Bigfoot continue to come up with new and exciting ideas for this truck series, as well as repeatedly winning championships all over the world. As a matter of fact, 15 Bigfoot trucks later and counting, Bob has turned this enterprise into a successful business that many of the rest of the Chandler clan have taken an interest in.
But then as it progressed, every year we continued to try something new with the truck to keep the people really interested. And that's where Jim and I both, you know, would sit down and try to figure out what we can do next with the truck. Trucks have gone from a stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3. Stage 1 was the original monster truck like you see behind me, with the leaf springs and a basic frame of a 3/4 ton pickup truck. The stage 2 trucks probably started with our number 4, and that was a much heavier heavier frame with the same body on top of it, bigger axles and bigger tires, and it was much stronger vehicle. And they went from the early trucks were probably about 8, 9, 10,000 pounds, and the newer stage 2 ended up being 15, 16, 17,000 pounds, much heavier trucks. And what happened with those is they could hit a set of cars and just go right through them. They'd make their own ramp on the cars. So the stunts then started getting where they were jumping them, hitting the cars harder, putting a better show on for the crowd.
Actually, the one that stayed the most unique is Bigfoot 5. We built a clone to it. It's a race rock cafe. It's non-functional. It looks like it. That is the only functional 10-foot tire truck ever built. So it's very unique. It's like our fast tracks. We built a little bit different kind of fast tracks, which is a tank basically with 2 blown forward motors in it. So that was a very unique vehicle also, and I put that in number 2 category. But now the trucks are so different that you and the driver learn together, because they're just nothing like the older trucks. Yeah, they're loud and they're pretty fast and everything, but past that, they're different. And you just have to learn together. Every time you make a new adjustment or a new part for one of these new trucks, you kind of learn with the driver. This truck is Bigfoot 15, our newest, production truck right now. It just has all the best ideas that we could come up with, from shock mounting to, components. We always put the best engine in it, the best transmission components. One of our better drivers, Dan Runte, he's the one that drives it. Our newest shock stuff goes on here. Dan's funny, he loves the new stuff, but he'd like somebody to sort it out a little bit first before he gets it. Because the man's under a lot of pressure. When Dan Runte goes out there and runs, he has to do a great job. He's synonymous with a good performance. If Dan's going to be there, hey, the people are going to see a good show. Bob won't let anything, his number one priority is safety for the driver. When you think of a stunt, we'll collaborate on a stunt. The first thing is, okay, how safe is it for the driver? I think the biggest contribution is tenacity. He's always looking, he eats, sleeps, and breathes monster trucks. He's always looking for a better way to do it. In the early days, it was okay, make a better truck. And now, today, it's okay to make a better forum. Let's get a good race series going. Okay, now we have the race series going, let's modify that race series. Not just straight line race, let's do a turning course. Let's do something that's going to interest the people. Okay, now let's look at stunts. Let's look at something that's really going to grab their eye. So he devised a series of stunts we can do. One of the biggest things is safety. Because all the while all this is going on, he had time to create the Monster Truck Racing Association, which has a body of rules for safety purposes only. And every promoter in the country has adapted those rules or some form of those rules and added to theirs. So it's been quite an influence in that respect. We have a much more agile, safer monster truck today because of those rules.
My dad's a somewhat large kid. He's a kid, but he's just a great man. He really is. He cares about people so much that you can't help but return it, I guess. He has a deep-rooted belief that everyone is wonderful and should be treated that way. And it's sort of our unspoken motto around here. I mean, one of the things we always say is that our fans are why we're here. And the reason why we have all these fans, in my personal opinion, is not just because of how great the truck looks and how wonderful it does in racing. It's because my father's attitude has sort of permeated everything. Always be nice. Always give your best. Always put on your best face. And throughout all the years he's been in business, he's never had a problem with sharing what he's come up with.
It's always been very rewarding. It's always been very rewarding to me to see the reactions from the people, and especially the kids. The kids are what kind of keeps me going. I love my grandkids, and I love the kids that I talk to, at events. And anytime I can, I try to set them up in the truck, and you see their eyes glare. I love that part of it. So there's been down times, but the positive times and the people you meet across this country, it's been great.
All of the trucks, competitions, exhibition ideas, and championships that exist today in the monster truck industry all began with a few crucial elements. Those elements come in the form of Bob Chandler. His inspiration, imagination, creativity, and pride is part of what has become a spectacular form of competitive entertainment. It's a legacy that the Chandler family will continue to support, and one that the world will continue to enjoy for years to come. For that, we pay tribute to Bob today by